Hello, coders. Hello. It is episode, what are we on now? 148? 148, and it is Thursday, the 24th of February. I have to make an apology. Last week, I didn't stream. In fact, I haven't been streaming for a while, and I've had such a massively busy few weeks that unfortunately I couldn't stream because I was in London, and I was in London for PHP UK, the PHP UK conference in London. My first time at that conference, and that is an in-person conference as well. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit about that, as well as talk about some bug tracking tools, some experiences that I've had with various bug tracking tools that we've used, that I've used in the past, and I'll give you some of the best ones and the not so good ones that I've used before. So there is a lot to talk about. I mean, the changelog is huge. It's going through my notes here. It is as big as the actual bug stuff that I want to talk about. Hello, Bernard from Reading. Oh, that's very local. Thank you for joining. I appreciate that. It's nice to know where you are. Thank you very much, Bernard. So busy. So okay. We'll start off. There was a few weeks, and then I did a few weeks before PHP UK. I think I did a talk at PHP Southwest, and this was another in-person talk. PHP Southwest is in Bristol, and my talk that I created was code with confidence using PHP Stan. I had to think about that then, remember what the name of my own talk was. Code with confidence using PHP Stan. And I gave that in person at PHP Southwest. That was brilliant. The feedback that I had was fantastic, and I was able to take that feedback and adjust the talk. And then PHP UK happened, and I was there for Thursday and Friday. I got stuck in the storms. So I had to have an extra night over there, and I didn't get back until late Saturday. Lots of problems with the trains. But PHP UK, there was some really interesting talks that I went to see. I've listed some of them, not all of them. I've listed some of them down here of the ones that I went to see. First of all, the keynote was great. The keynote was from Pauline. She gave a never stop learning, or the curiosity of cross-pollination, which drives innovation. That was a talk that it was very inspiring, because she went into depth as to the various different things that have happened in history that have sort of cross-pollinated ideas, and sort of you came away thinking, maybe I will try various different things. There's lots of transferable skills. There's lots of things that can cross-pollinate. We do a little bit of work, and we can easily get siloed in this sort of bubble of this is what my work's going to be. But in fact, that could actually be used for something else. I mean, I know that sounds very abstract, but you'll have to check out the keynote. It's very awesome. And then I went to see a talk on Open API by Rob Allen. That was full of really useful resources and a guide to the Open API configuration. Now, if I was to build the How to Code Well platform with an API, like I did originally when we were dealing with microservices, because I thought that was the way to go, I would probably be using Open API because of the things that Rob mentioned on the talk. Lots of resources, lots of configuration guides and stuff that he gave, and it was a humorous talk as well. I really enjoyed that. And then I saw, so this is just on the Thursday, and then I saw a talk regarding improving documentation by Alexandra White. And so that was a talk where I was like, do I really want to go and see a talk about documentation? As someone who is a developer who writes code, is this actually going to be useful to me? And in fact, it was very useful to me, because, funnily enough, right now I'm actually writing a lot of documentation for the project that I'm on. And it just kind of, the talk happened at the right time. You know what I mean? It was almost like the talks were tailored for my sort of part of the career at the moment, and that was one of them. So that was a really good talk. Documentation is something that we shouldn't just dismiss. It's something that we should care about as developers. Okay, so then I went to see a talk by Stacey Cashmore, and that was to embrace the pitfalls of our stop-start journey to change. This was very funny. This was incredibly relatable. She went into some really interesting, really sort of almost, I would say, very close to one-to-one kinds of experiences that I've had in the past, where, you know, she went through the whole testing sort of scenario, and you know, feeling like everything was going well, and then put it out to production, and then things didn't go so well, and there was this the conversations that she had with her team and stuff. You know, I've played in that sort of sandpit before, so it was really good. So if you get a chance to see that, then do. Very funny, very relatable. The closing keynote on Thursday was by Sam Bellin, and that was regarding passwords. Passwords are so 1990. That was good because it explained how to use passwordless, using things like UTP and I forget the other technologies that he mentioned, but he even showed us a demo where you could log in without a username. It's kind of mind-boggling, but it can happen. And he was talking about YubiKeys, really important things. So yeah, on the Friday there was the keynote, which was Open Source is for Good. This was by Lorna Jane Mitchell, and this really opened my eyes to the open source and why open source is good for business. I've always been on the fence with open source because for myself building things, because I've always kind of felt a bit nervous. You know, I use a lot of open source technology, but if the things that are generating me money are open source, surely I'm just giving my stuff to competitors. But it's not really like that. I've kind of grown out of that way of thinking. And she started talking about the various ways that open source maintainers can actually get paid and can be helped. And that was really good. I think this is a very important topic, because there is a lot of issues, of course, right now with open source, where the open source maintainers feel very burnt out. They're very pressurized in upgrading PHP. They're keeping backwards compatibility on old legacy versions and stuff. So it was a very timely talk. I really enjoyed it. And then this was a crazy talk regarding PHP fibers. This is by, I'm gonna really butcher the names here, but Milko Krostakov. So PHP fibers is this thing that I had heard of, and I was just like, no, this isn't possible. And I actually saw him create an example of PHP async code. Mind-boggling stuff, but I came away really inspired. There is some useful things that you can do with async PHP, specifically around I/O operations. So when you're, say for instance, you are doing something that requires a lot of operations to the disk, or you're building things, or you're processing things, or you're communicating to various different databases and stuff, then usually, because PHP just runs on one sort of lane, if you will, things get blocked. You have to wait until that process is done. But in fact, with the async-ness of PHP fibers, you can actually do more. You can, and he showed a really good example of creating a loop and then adding jobs to this loop, and they were processing it whenever they were ready, which was brilliant. And there's some really good things that I've thought of, or well, I don't know whether they're good things, but I've thought of a few things that could be useful with this PHP fibers. I might play with it sometime. He also did a really good talk on on JavaScript versus PHP as well. That was and how evil we can get. Sort of comparing PHP, sort of JavaScript prototypes. You know, I can do this in JavaScript. Can I do this in PHP? And using a lot of magic methods and stuff in PHP. This isn't anything to do with the PHP Fibers talk. He did another talk on JavaScript and PHP, and that was so good. He's a really good speaker. And then I saw a talk by here's another name I'm going to screw with, Dristi Jane, and this was regarding the blockchain. So a talk on the blockchain and crypto. It's called Hop on the PHP Blockchain, Rocket to the Moon. Now, this was a handy talk for those who are very new to the blockchain, I felt, because she explained a lot of the whats, not so much the hows, but the whats, you know, the whats and the whys. So for example, what is a nonce? What is a blockchain? What is a miner? How, and why should these things happen? Why do we have these things in crypto? Yeah, that was good. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of an advanced talk, though, where we actually get into some of the nitty-gritty parts of the code. She did show some code examples, but it would be nice to actually get my hands dirty. Again, this is something I wouldn't mind doing on the stream one day, is just seeing how we can actually code something on the blockchain. I think that would be quite an interesting challenge. And then I saw a great talk by David Liddermont about practical advanced static analysis. So I did a talk on static analysis at PHP Southwest, and this was a different spin on static analysis with PHP Stan. So it was very good to see the different sort of the different contexts that you can. Well, I shouldn't say context. The sort of the different angles that you can approach this, different mindsets. It was a good talk, and then there was this thing where it was a VCR, and this was by James. Sorry, James, I don't have your surname here, but James. It was Betamax to VCR, harden your API integration tests. So, excuse me, VCR it's a open source project that records your API. I want to say responses. I may have got that wrong. No, it is. It records the API responses, and then you can replay them. So a bit like a VCR, yeah. So a videotape. So you can record the API and then run them, which means that you can use the recording in your integration tests, which means that you can just run the recording rather than actually hit the endpoints. And then obviously when the endpoints change, you then create a new recording. But these recordings you can commit to source control, which means that you then have a history of the various different API calls. So that is incredibly interesting. That, as well as the Open API talk. Again, if I was to do anything with APIs, those two things are something that I would be very interested in: the Open API and the VCR for integration testing. And then finally, there was a closing keynote by Michael Cullum regarding leading in tech. Another good talk there about becoming sort of a leader and what is a leader in tech. Some good comparisons between various different roles, job types in this wonderful world of software development that we're in. Right. So that was PHP UK. It was a very busy weekend. Last a couple of days. And that was in London. And then when I got back, I then gave the PHP, the Code with Confidence with using PHP Stan talk again at a Symfony user group in Portugal. That was a remote thing. I did that this week, actually. That was very good. Again, I got some good feedback to that too, and I'm going to be giving that talk again to other user groups remotely as well in the future. I'll let you guys know. But circling back a bit to the PHP UK, I met some really great people. I hooked up with some old colleagues as well, and I met some new friends as well. I just want to give a quick shout out to Joel, the developer. We spent a good portion of time together having a beer. We even played sort of table football, which was awesome. He has a YouTube channel. He does content which talks about development and the mindset of the devs. So his channel is called Joel, the developer. So he did the latest one, which was handling your ego as a developer, which very good, very good, well done. So do check out his channel. I'll put links to his show notes, links to his YouTube channel in the show notes too. Then straight after PHP UK, like literally the day after when I got back on the Sunday, we got a puppy. So, out of the fire out of the frying pan into the fire, is that the saying? It was, so we got a puppy. He's 8 weeks old. He's an English Springer Spaniel. He is super cute. And his name is Goose, after Top Gun. We have Goose and we have Murphy. So Murphy is 2.5 years old, another English Springer Spaniel. And then we have Goose, which is 8 weeks old. And that we're doing all the usual things that you would do with puppies right now. So, toilet training, crate training, all sorts of, stuff. My hands are covered in cuts and bruises. Well, not bruises, just cuts from his teeth, because he's starting to teeth now. So, yeah, interesting times. I'm incredibly tired, but I'm fueled with coffee. Yes. So that's the changelog. That's me. That's what I've been up to. It's been a wild ride, and I'm hoping that the next few weeks will be a little bit sort of calmer, and I can actually do more of a curated is that the word, curated set of podcasts. And what I'm going to be talking about now is what makes a good bug tracking tool. Or the best bug tracking tools. So what I've done is I've as usual, I've got some notes down here as to what I think makes a good bug tracking tool. And I have also listed some bug tracking tools that I've used before and my experiences with them. So, yes. I'm being asked a question. Bernard has asked, are you able to share the link from Rob, Open API? Yes. Let me... I don't have it, but I'll dig it out. I'll see if I can find it, or I'll see if there is something around that I can give you. Either the slides, if he'll allow it, or some documentation on Open API, because I was having a look at stuff myself when I got back. I was like, ooh, I quite fancy building an API now. So yeah, I'll tweet it out later. All right. So and when I do have it, I'll update the document, the description of the show notes thing with a link to the documentation that I found. Okay. So bug tracker tools, and hi, thank you for joining mine. Thank you very much, Mr. Fish. Bug tracking tools. This is a topic that it's one of those things that, as a contractor, I just use whatever is available, right? As in, so I've just used whatever the team uses. I don't have much input as to what tools are used. If I was a full-time developer, I would probably have more say in what the team does and how the team does, unless I was brought on as a consultant, because then I can consult and say, these are the things that I've used in the past. and this is what I think fits for your project. Now, that's an important point. Not all bug tracking tools are good fits for all projects, because it really depends on what you're doing and the processes that you're in. Some projects and some teams, they are more agile than other teams. So, and some, and vice versa. Some teams and projects are more waterfall than other agile teams, obviously. And therefore they kind of lean more towards certain tools than others. Some are set up specifically for agile. They're very flexible, very fluid, whereas others are quite sort of, strict. And they give you more tools for things like the change request process, change management and stuff like that, as I've mentioned in the previous set of podcasts around those kind of things. So, first of all, I'm going to give you some sort of views that I've got regarding what makes a good bug tracker tool, in my opinion. And again, this is my opinion. This is just, the last, 15, 20 years worth of experience of using these things. So, do take this with a pinch of salt, because it's what has worked for me. It might not be working for you. Okay, so in my opinion, it doesn't matter what tool you use. It doesn't. It doesn't matter what tool you could use. You could even use a spreadsheet, and I have used spreadsheets for tracking bugs before. As long as you've got eyes on the issues that are coming in, as long as you're aware of what's coming in, and as long as the list, because essentially that's what they are. They're just lists. Essentially, if you remove all of the the sugar on top, all the street furniture, these are just lists of bugs. And as long as you have eyes on that, really, laser focused eyes on the list, as long as you're aware of the bugs, and as long as you're able to create your own task or bug or ticket or however you want to call it, easily, then that is good. If it works for you, it works for you. And the thing here is that friction hurts. Friction costs. It costs time. What do I mean by friction, though? What does that mean? So you want to make sure that the tool that you're using is easy to use, right? You don't want to have to go through a load of hoops, and you want something that has a good user experience. You want something that is easily integrated with your current tool set, because you're going to have a whole suite of tools. It could even be, from the lowest point, you could have just Word and a spreadsheet, right? Word being where you collate your documentation of your system, because you're going to have to document the system, and then you've got your spreadsheet. But let's go on to the other end of the spectrum, because you'll only be able to be on that for so long until your system gets too big, and then you'll be on things like Asana, you'll be on Trello, you'll be on Jira, you'll be on Bugsnag, you'll be on all sorts of stuff, and you'll have different tool sets. So you could have the Alatazan tool set. So you could have Jira, as I mentioned. You could have I've forgotten the names of them. Confluence. You could have Bitbucket. You could have all sorts of things that are within your tool set. And the thing with Alatazan, I'm picking on that a lot. I'm going to be picking on that a lot today, is that they are themselves their own ecosystem. So you'll find that one tool hooks very nicely in another tool. It's a nice walled garden. But it's very difficult to integrate. And of course, they own Trello. It's very difficult to integrate that with other tools outside of their ecosystem. Think of them like Apple, but for development. So if you do have an Alatazan license, then it's very good. It's very good. You also want to have a very low learning curve, and this is something that Alatazan, in my opinion, isn't very good at, because there is a lot of things. I don't know. There's just a lot of things that I have to teach myself Even if I go from one project to another project, and even if they are using the same Atlassian suite, the projects are set up very differently, and there's a big learning curve, I find. Where all the documentation is stored. Where is the structure of these things? Are we using epics? Are we using story points? Are we using all sorts of crazy stuff? And I know that's specific to the project, but it's not very. It doesn't always become obvious to you. And there are certain things in Atlassian. I want to call it Atlassian. It probably isn't pronounced like that, and I'm probably going to get picked up on it. But anyway, where was it going? Yes, it's not always obvious that there are integrations with other Atlassian products as well. You just kind of have to suck it and see, really. But anyway, so you want to make sure that there's a low learning curve. You want to make sure it's easy to integrate outside of the current ecosystem, which is what Atlassian doesn't really have. So if you've got a tool that is outside of the ecosystem, you want to have the ability to communicate to that tool. It needs to be easy to integrate with your current tool chain. And it should just be generally easy to use. This is all what the friction means, right? So low friction. Friction costs. It costs time because it's a journey of discovery, trying to learn how to do this thing, use this tool in the way that you actually want to do. And to be honest, let's boil it down. It's a list. It's just a list. It's a list. And on that list, there is a link or two that goes off to some other documentation piece, or it's attached to a pull request, or it's attached to a line of code. That's all it is. It's just a list with HTML. The next part is that it wants to be quick and easy to install and set up, as in literally I'm going to press a button that says install and it's done. And it's done. There's a question to be asked, will it be self-hosted? So are you actually looking after this thing? Or is it going to be a paid service that you're actually doing a monthly subscription to? Now, because of the money side of it, that has a lot of impact as to whether or not you're going to use those kind of tools, because most of the paid tools rely on user seats, as in user licenses. So you say that you have X amount of employees, these are their email addresses, send them invite codes, which means that if you get bigger in terms of your business, you get more employees, that means your license fee is going to have to go up, because you're going to have add-ons to add more people, more user seats to your application, to your tool set, which can cost an incredibly a lot of money. So that is a question that one has to ask, and I would probably suggest that if you were to go through the free versions, and there's a number of them here, you want to make sure that there is a good path of upgrading to a paid version, and whether that's the same tool, so from free to paid, or whether it's from a completely open source free tool, bug list, to something that's completely different, a totally different product, but is a bugs list. You want to make sure that they can eventually be upgraded. You can upgrade them to. Sorry. The word I'm looking for is migration. You want to make sure that you can migrate from one product to another product easily. You don't want to find that actually you now are able to purchase user seats, but you have a huge history of bugs that you want to export and import into your new fancy shiny tool. Okay, so question. Will it be self-hosted or will it be paid? If it's self-hosted, then that's a whole another set of fun that you have to deal with. Security is a massive one, obviously, because you're talking about, bugs in your code. You really don't want that to go anywhere else other than your team. You really don't want people logging in who shouldn't be logging in. And also, you want to make sure, I haven't even put this point in here, but, it's just cropped into my head. when someone leaves your team, you want to make sure that you can adjust the permissions in a way that just locks people out, or gives you granular control over what they see and what they don't see, or what kind of edit rights and read or write rights, read and write rights. I'm sure there's a better way of saying it. I'm tired. I have a puppy. You want to make sure that there's a matrix of permissions that you can turn on and off. And when someone leaves your team, you can just remove them from the suite entirely. There are tools that have things like single sign-on, for instance. So if you have a business domain and your employees have that as their email address, as a TLD, then you can, see, I'm half awake. You can use that and say, everybody who has this at blah blah blah.com address, they can access it, and again, this all comes with user fees and whatnot. I don't even know where I am on my list anymore. Okay, yes. So can you import your current bugs and tasks? So can you import them from like a CSV or some other way of doing an import? Can you export as well? So if you do a trial, for instance, and you're doing one of these sort of trial, 15-day trial jobbies, and you create a whole bunch of bugs, are you able to export them in a format that other tools can use? Does it have an API? Can you actually do things, communicate to other things without having to go through huge amounts of hoops? Can all of your devs use it on their platforms? So is it just locked down to Microsoft, or is it locked down to Mac? Is there an app for it? Is there a mobile app for it, for instance? Those questions are really important, especially when you're actually considering buying something, because now we're all working from home. So, and some people might be, in an environment where they don't have Wi-Fi, and so they're dealing with mobile data. So how does that work? Is it easy to use? Okay, so how can it integrate well with other tools? So I kind of touched on this a little bit, but this is more specifically to do with the other tools within your tool chain, tool chest, toolbox, whatever you want to call it. So things like, other tools that I've used before, things like, obviously GitHub, Bitbucket, my own GitLab instance, those kind of things, not my own, but the client's own GitLab instance, AWS, all sorts of other bits and pieces, but also from the project management side of things. How about things like Harvest, so time tracking for things like invoices? It's not all just about bugs. It can also hook into things that are for project management and just general day-to-day project-ness. How about things like monitoring and reporting tools? So this is a really cool thing that a lot of these things that I'll be talking about, these tools in a minute, they do, and they do really well. Some of them do, at least. So monitoring and reporting. So are you able to set up some form of communication from a monitoring tool that will automatically create you a bug ticket based on what's currently happening live on your site? I've worked on a project that has happened, and that is amazing. That is so cool, because you literally, it's almost like you have another developer out there in the ether somewhere, and they are seeing all the logs, all your error logs that is collected in some place, and they're analyzing the error logs, or just the access logs or the error logs or whatever. And if they spot something that is a really bad thing, like a 500 error, for instance, or a 400 X error, for instance, then they will automatically send a message to your bug tracker, and they will add a bug to that tracker. Now, if that error is happening more than once, or, if it's happening a lot, for instance, it's not going to suddenly just pollute your bug tracker with thousands of the same thing. It's going to discover whether that bug already exists, and you could do this via things like regular expression rules and stuff. Now, can your bug tracker do that? Because that is just gold. And can you integrate that with things like Slack? So not only does your bug tracker get automatically populated with bugs, so your backlog is being forever populated with actual bugs that are coming from the production box, and with those bugs comes a stack trace. So all you need to do is look at the bug to know, and also because it's got it could hook into things like think, Pete, brain isn't working. JavaScript headers, because it can read the header of the request. It will know the referrer, so it will know where the user has come from, which means that you have an idea as to how to get to that particular error, that incident. It's not always perfect, but it's certainly a good stab in the dark. And also, it can read the request, so if it's an API or if it's something with a query string, it will give you that. So, very good, very awesome. And if you can integrate that into Slack as well, or whatever communication thing that you're dealing with your team, so you have a channel specifically to the bugs that are coming in, that's so good. That's so good. And then, flag them as some sort of, category or whatever. Say it's automated, for instance. And then, that's good. It gives your team a sense of what's actually happening right now, which is, visual quick feedback loops they're always important. Does it have an API? Or webhooks? A lot of what I've just talked about there about communication does rely on webhooks. So communicating to other tools by calling specific webhooks and stuff like that. Does it have webhooks? Does it have an API? Are you able to integrate it well with your other tools? So that is a sort of a quick list of things that, in my opinion, makes a good bug tracker. But I'm going to now talk a little bit about the trackers that I've used in my past life. And we can see. Stop these down. Yeah, sorry about that. Let me get rid of this. Sorry, I was not paying attention to the old chat. See, this is why I'm on the fence about bringing in guests on the show again, because of this. When I did guests on the show, it was pre-recorded. So I would, and some of the guests that we did, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's something that has been on my mind. When we had guests on the show, it was mostly season 1 and season 2, and we were able to do them pre-recorded. So they would come on. We were either using, I think it was Skype or Zoom or whatever, and I would have a list of questions that they would already be aware of, and we would just have a nice chilled out conversation with no live chat, with nothing, it's just me and them. And that was really good. The problem with that is that, there's obviously an editing piece. Often, and this is something that I offered for the guests to see the show before it went out. So I would give them a private link, which meant that I would have to do a lot of work up front, because I would need to edit the show, and then I would need to provide them with a link, and then they would give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Some of them, a lot of them said they just trusted me, so they would just put it out, which is great. But doing it when you're editing a show, it actually takes a really long time. And I don't mean just removing things. I got to a point where I didn't remove anything. It was just a straight pass. but the time that it takes is like audio levels. Not every guest had the same microphone, obviously. There were some times where there was some issues with the internet connections and all of that jazz. So I was doing a lot of stuff in post, post editing. And yeah, it just took an awful amount of time. But there is something that I just want to do it again. I just want to have guests on the show again, and I'm just trying to think of a way I can do it, which is easier for me to do than last time. It was a massive rush. I got into huge amounts of burnout last time when I was doing it, and I stopped it. And I thought if I was to ever have guests on the show again, I would have to try and rethink how I did it to make my life a little easier. It takes a massive amount of my time to do it. I would also have to research the guest, and then come up with the questions. There was a lot of back and forth, obviously, and then yeah. So what a show that I did, on for every week, was usually done a couple of weeks in advance. Which was always a juggle when you had to have, when you had a schedule. Some guests unfortunately couldn't make it. They had other issues. They were double booked. Sometimes I dropped the ball as well. So there's always that. Doing things live is, for me, I mean, I just press the button and off I go. But I don't know if I want to have a live guest on the show. I don't know, and I think part of that is the spam that I'm getting. I think part of that is if I was to get a guest and they were bombarded by some spammy sort of messages. And I know that there are podcasters out there who do things live and they don't have the comments on, but to me that feels a bit weird, because if you're going to have it live, then you kind of want to have that audience interaction. So I don't know. I'm kind of sitting on the fence. If I was to go the way of having it edited like I used to, then I would need to properly think about it and actually do some shows well in advance. So I might have to do like a batch of interviews and then put it out. Drip feed them out. Also, I don't want to lose the liveness of the show as well. And I think this is right now I'm staring at a list of words, and it's just like bullet points of things that I want to talk about. And I love going down rabbit holes and stuff. And there is that live element, and questions get asked, and I feed off of that, which is great. So I don't want to lose that whole liveness. And I do think that if you're having a live conversation with someone, it does come across more genuine because you are in the moment. You're in the moment, and you want to share that moment with the audience. So I don't really know. Maybe I'll do a bit of both. Maybe I'll do a live show with a guest, and maybe I'll do edited shows with a guest. There are going to be, obviously, I would imagine, more guests out there who don't want to be on a live stream, who want it to be edited. So maybe it's a time thing. At the end of the day, it's a time thing. And at the moment, as I went through on the changelog, I don't have a lot of time right now, but it's something that I would love to do. Anyway, let's get back to the bugs. So, the bug tools that I've used. We're talking now well over 10 years ago. I used a tool called Trac, Trac. I don't even know if it exists anymore. And it was very... I guess for that time it was okay, but right now you probably wouldn't even give it a glance at the moment, because of the UI. The UX isn't particularly good. There are far more better things out there at the moment. However, I'm going to have to caveat all of this by saying, look, I haven't used these tools since 10 years ago plus, so they may have changed, they may have improved, but Trac was one of them, and also Bugzilla. So Bugzilla was or is from Mozilla, Mozilla. Again, not fantastic UI or the UX experience. It was very sort of basic, but it did the job. It did the job. And then I used Redmine myself. So this is a Ruby sort of track and project management tool. And that was a self-hosted thing. And again, not that very user-friendly, I thought. Not very user-friendly. Also, you would need to use Ruby. So if you weren't a Ruby dev, it would be very difficult to sort of get into the nitty-gritty code of it and see if you can do any customizations and stuff. That wasn't very easy to do, but I chose it because I was sort of, at the time I was playing around with a bit of Ruby, and Redmine was something that I decided to just sort of have a play with. I actually created some projects that used Redmine, and then of course you've got Jira. Jira being the Atlassian sort of bug tracker, project management tool of choice. This is something that I've used a lot, and for various different projects, and they've all used it in a very different way. Some use it more on the agile side. They actually go through all the way down to like the burn down charts. They use it in their different sprint ceremonies. And I've used this myself. I've actually self-hosted Jira myself, but that was a pain. That was a very painful experience. This has paid features. The Atlassian sort of suite has paid features, obviously. I believe it's all on license fees, user seats, as I mentioned before. Again, if you're using the suite of other tools, so the other things that Atlassian has, then you are in a good place, because you can hook into various things like Bitbucket, Confluence, and all sorts of stuff, which is good. Then you've got Asana. I really personally like Asana. I used that last year and a bit at the start of this year as well. It was good. I really liked it. There's lots of integrations as well, things like Harvest, as I mentioned. And I just like the way that you can visually see what's going on very quickly. So that's cool. I do find Jira can be a little bit clunky. I think there is a clunky element to it, and Asana makes it a little bit. I mean, Asana, you've got unicorns, so And then of course you've got Trello, which is kind of very basic. Okay, you start from a very basic level, but you can make it as complicated as you want. Sometimes you can make it too complicated, and then it just looks like a big Trello mess. So it's very very flexible, and it's not just for tech. I've used Trello before for a shopping list. So you would use the Trello app, and then I just used that as like post-it notes. Essentially, that's what it is. Very good for things like Kanban as well. Incredibly flexible. And then I have played with Monday.com. However, well, I say I've played with it. I haven't played with it. I've seen people play with it. I've been involved in meetings where that was used. I can't really say anything about it, to be honest. I don't really know much, to be fair. It was just a tool that someone was using, and I was there. This spammer is coming back. This is not good. Let's remove and report. Oh dear. See, this is a reason why I'm thinking maybe I should just kill the whole live thing anyway, because meh. Okay, so also something that I have used before is a hand-rolled tool. So this is where we actually created the tool. I don't recommend doing this unless you are interested in actually selling it and licensing it yourself and giving it to a client. And that is awesome if you can use if you can provide them with a tool to list bugs in the application that you're building them, or not just bugs but also features and stuff like that. I've used the word bug a lot here, but to be honest, these tools are very good for just highlighting new features and documenting new features and stuff. Bugs, features, sometimes they go hand to hand. Is it a bug? Is it a feature? Is it an undocumented feature, this bug? Yeah. So let's just do a quick sort of summary then. I think really it boils down to automation. If you can get these tools automated in things like Slack, in say your Sentry, your Bugsnag, your Datadog, your monitoring systems, if you can get them hooking into various things using webhooks, if you can get them hooking into time tracking tools, it's awesome. It really is awesome. You just got to be very careful about being in a walled garden. If you're in a walled garden, then it's very difficult to get out, and you're at the mercy of the company putting up their prices. And also, the more people you get on the team, the more you're going to have to pay because of these user licenses and stuff. So yeah, that's the talk on what makes a good bug tracking tool. They are, and I suppose I have said on the title of today's show is the best bug tracking tools. So I think out of all of them, the best one I think is Asana, in my opinion, and then Jira. I reckon. But I suppose, yeah, and then I guess you got Track and Bugzilla and Redmine on the other side of the spectrum. So I mean, I haven't played with them for over 10 years, so I don't really know what they're like at the moment. But yeah, there we go. Thank you ever so much for watching. I'm really so sorry about this spammer thing. I don't know if it's the stuff that's happening around the world, but it's not good. And I am considering the future of the podcast and the shape of it. Maybe I will be doing this less live and bringing guests on in the future, but I need to really think about the shape of all of that. You can get this as always on the podcast. So this is howtocodewell.fm, or you could get this on Spotify or on iTunes. And of course, you can watch the previous shows as well as all those guest shows that I talked about earlier on YouTube. Take care, everybody. Stay safe and be good to each other. Cheers. Bye-bye.